In the 90s, Playmates Toys made the deepest line of Star Trek action figures in history. My name's Keith, and I'm a collector working towards owning all 284. I've been a Trek fan for almost 35 years, and most people are sick of me talking about it. But somehow I've convinced my old friend Mike to review them with me on Look at My Star Trek Toys! Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to Look at My Star Trek Toys. When we're going to do an episode in which our title is wrong. Because we're not looking at toys today. We're looking at antiques, sort of.
Kinda.
Kind of. We are going to be looking at something that I found while antiquing with my wife. And because we'll drive around, go to various antique stores and just sort of see what's there. And sometimes, I'm hoping maybe there's like a figure or two. That'd be awesome. Some old comic books. She's looking for like actual antiques, like an adult. That somebody would want, like lamps and stuff, but I'm just looking for toys because I'm still 12. But I found something pretty unique and pretty extraordinary. Mike, how's it going? How excited are you to find out what I have discovered?
Well, Keith, you sent me a teaser, however long ago it was, and you only showed me. You'll understand. It all will be revealed shortly, but I am conceptually very excited, but when you kind of just teased it for me, we couldn't get in close, if you know what I'm saying. And I think we're gonna make an attempt to do that today. So let's just cut to the chase and tell me what'd you find?
Okay, so tucked away in the corner of a little antique store in New Jersey in a bookshelf was this old, like very old looking folder like you would get at like a conference, or you'd have your term paper in, that didn't look like anything special. But for reasons beyond my understanding, I pulled this folder out of the bookshelf and was like, what the what? Now, before I show what it is, I should explain what I do for a living. Because it actually applies to this, which is why I was able to recognize what it is. I work for a company called Theatrical Index, and I'm theater press, like for Broadway. I cover Broadway shows, that kind of stuff. And sometimes when a show opens, they will send us a press packet. And in it is usually some show branded stuff. There'll be some information about the show, maybe some pictures from the show. Sometimes they'll send to the cast recording if they haven't yet, that sort of stuff, or some, little giveaway nonsense. And the purpose of doing that is they want me and the company I work for to publish things about the show. They want us to promote the show. It's like, hey, you know what? There's this new little show happening. It's called Hamilton, I guess. It's about a historical figure. Maybe we should run an article about it before it opens so people understand that, this happens and it exists. And so that's the type of thing we'll get. And which is why I recognize this, like, you know what this looks like? This looks like a press kit. It looks like a press kit, and you know what's a press kit for? Let's hop over to Toy Cam and let's take a look at what this is. Here it is. This is a Star Trek Voyager press kit.
Sweet.
From season 1. And you can see this was the label at the antique store. I paid $15 for this folder here. This was given out by Paramount. It looks like this. It's odd. It's this folder. It looks like those cheap paper cups you got coffee in the 90s. This is a very 90s design, and it almost looks like a generic thing that they just branded with their stuff. But again, this didn't go out to fans. This really only went to press. So they didn't mass produce it. So there's no reason to get too fancy with it. But if we open it up, what's inside? Okay, so we have a whole bunch of really cool Voyager artifacts. So I will start. We have a whole mess of 8x10 pictures and headshots. And so this was introducing the press to the show. The show had not aired yet. Nobody had seen anything about it. And so they were trying to like, hey, will you run an article about the new Star Trek show out there? So this is a cast photo introducing all of the actors taken on the bridge. And then we have individual headshots for all of the cast. So here's Kate Mulgrew's headshot. And these were clearly shot in a studio. This is like basically the same background that you did your 8th grade school pictures on. So they're not even on the set or in an episode. This is just them taking promotional shots. And we have Robert Beltran as First Officer Chakotay, who at this point, this was a spoiler to the press because the pilot had not aired. We didn't know that this was going to be the first officer because that happens in the pilot. Same thing with Roxanne Dawson, named Roxanne Biggs Dawson at this point because she was still married to Star Trek actor Casey Biggs. But again, these are very early promo shots. They're just simple 8x10 prints, just like you were doing your headshots acting. Here's Ethan Phillips as Neelix. Certainly very elaborate character design right from the very beginning. It's interesting that these are in black and white. So as if you were press, what you might do is take a picture of this picture and print it in the paper if you're in your little preview of what's going to happen. Robert Duncan McNeil, whose figure I still can't find, here as Tom Paris. Everybody looking young and fresh-faced on their first day of school because, for a lot of these actors, especially Jennifer Lean, she hadn't done anything before.
Peter Pan.
So Peter Pan, Kess, kind of Peter Pan because she only lives to 8 years old. So by definition, and you can see some of the little details there. This is copyright 1994 by Paramount Pictures. And you have Paramount's logo and all of their, telling me things that I probably shouldn't be showing this on the internet, but I'm doing it anyway.
As a press kit, you're press.
It's a press kit. I'm press. That's true. I'm actually, 20-something years later, now doing what this was designed to do.
Yep.
We're promoting Star Trek Voyager. Guys, don't miss the series premiere of Star Trek Voyager. We're going to get into how to promote that later in this packet. Here is Tim Russ as Tactical Security Officer Tuvok. In there, see, they had nice turtlenecks. I wore a mock turtleneck like that for all of high school. It explains a lot.
Bad idea then, worse idea now.
Yeah. And here is Garrett Wang as Harry Kim. Happily not diseased if you watched our unboxing of the estate sale. But again, everybody looking so young and fresh-faced. And here's this one I think is very interesting. So here is Robert Picardo. But you will notice he is credited on this headshot as Doc Zimmerman. And guess what? That's not his name. The doctor never ended up having a name. He was just referred to as the Doctor. He did flirt with a couple of names as he's a hologram. We tried to figure out what his name was going to be, and Zimmerman was one of them. And the creator of the Doctor was named Zimmerman, but that didn't actually end up being the character's name. But at this point, they didn't know that yet. So there was some speculation happening. So this is some of the very early materials that went out crediting him as Doc Zimmerman, even though that's not what happened. So it's an interesting little piece of trivia and piece of memorabilia here. Also in here are slides, which we will show you a little bit later once we get set up to show them, which most of them are color versions of some of these, although I think they're slightly different. We're going to find out. Oh, it's so exciting. But these were slides. So back then you couldn't just scan and email the pictures. So if you wanted to print some of these, you actually had to process the slide for printing. If you want to be the cover of your magazine, right, you take this slide and you would take a picture of the slide and then print that as the cover of your magazine. And so we'll talk more about them as we go forth.
Oh,
but in
yes. Here we go.
is, I think, some really interesting stuff. So we have a bunch of press information. And so this is production information that they put out right before. So this was obviously they put this out before it aired. And so it's letting me know it premieres on January 16th, 1995, even though clearly it's not 8 to 9 because it's a 2-hour special. So the first thing in the press kit has a mistake, which I'd like to say is not a common occurrence in press kits, but it's a common occurrence in press kits and press releases, which I get every day. You wouldn't believe what's wrong. But then again, they'd be like, back at you, buddy. How many mistakes have you put out in the publication? Plenty. Network was UPN, United Paramount Network, which this was one of the first big shows. It was a brand new network, and they launched UPN with Voyager, I believe, because Deep Space Nine and Next Gen were syndicated. So this was what was going to get UPN off the ground. No longer is with us. It merged with the WB network to become the CW network. So they obviously shot this at Paramount Studios, and it has a little the format, little explanation is what Star Trek Voyager is. Star Trek Voyager takes place in the 24th century and chronicles the adventures of the starship USS Voyager, which finds itself in a distant part of the galaxy along with a former enemy, the Maquis. Together, they must find their way back to Federation space. That's a pretty fair explanation of what the show is. We have a cast list, and then the producers and creators, Rick Berman, Michael Peller, and Jerry Taylor, and the supervising producer, David Livingston. And of course, Paramount was the production company. They didn't credit the sound designers because it would have been my family. That would have been fun, but whatever, it's not in there. But another thing about a press kit that you'll get at the bottom here, you see the press contacts. So these are the press agents that I, in theater, in press, I'm like, okay, thanks for this information about the show that's coming up. Hey, can you tell me who the stage manager is? Have you set an opening date yet? What's the first rehearsal date? I will reach out to the press agents and speak to them directly, and they'll give me more information about the show. Or if they'll reach out to me, Theatrical doesn't quite do this, but they're like, hey, I've got a story to pitch you on this. They'll come out to me and try to pitch an idea to me to print. So these are the theater versions that I work with all the time, but here they are for Paramount and television and film. So if you wanted to call the press agent for Star Trek Voyager from 25 years ago, there's the numbers. There it is. Okay, so moving on. To help me write my article featuring Star Trek Voyager and its launch, we have here some did you know trivia pieces, which are pretty interesting. I won't read them all, but certainly this is a great way. They try to make it easy on you to write an article. So they'll pitch you ideas, they'll pitch you little trivia things, and fill out stuff. At this point, there were 6 Star Trek films that had earned over $700 million in box office grosses and video rentals. So
now, Keith, in 1994, if the last bullet point on that sheet says William Shatner will be the oldest man to ever enter space, would you believe it?
Knowing William Shatner, I could totally believe that Shatner will Shatner himself to space somehow, some way. So lots of interesting little stuff. Ooh, in 1993, Star Trek computer software and video game products generated $70 million in retail sales. Let me tell you, reading, just, behind the scenes here, reading on the screen what's next to me left is making me so nauseous. It's ridiculous. So this is a really cool episode. I might yak on the air. Stay tuned, folks. Continuing here, and they've got Star Trek Voyager letterhead. It's on very thick paper. It's very fancy, even though it was in a standard manila envelope. So here is some
Single
more.
staple.
This single staple, more information, sort of pitching the idea of writing an article about this. And sometimes they basically will hand you an article for you to copy and paste. So this would be that, the version of that, explaining what the show is, and premiering again Monday, January 16th, 1995. So if you wanted to literally copy and paste this whole thing and post it in your newspaper, they'd be thrilled. They would want you to do that. So, or adapt it a little bit, which is, something we all do. All right, moving forward, we have a little bit of a show Bible, a glossary of terms, another description of the show, some information about the ship, the bridge, the briefing room. Inside the briefing room, the entire senior staff will gather to make important decisions regarding the fate of the starship USS Voyager and hold negotiations with opposing forces. So they're sort of giving you a sense of the entire set. So obviously they built sets for all these things. So somebody decided to write a little explanation about what all these things are, including a write-up on what the Maquis is, which is a very important plot point. Again, allowing whoever's reading this to have a general sense of what's going on. If they need to explain it, they explain the Ocampa, the Kazon, the array, the caretaker's array. It's interesting because, at this point, they were still shooting season 1, probably very early in season 1 because they hadn't even aired the pilot yet. So a lot of this information was like, here's what we know so far.
Right.
But it's interesting that they did include a little show Bible here. And continuing with the show Bible, we have character descriptions. To sort of explain who each of these, it's almost like a breakdown, which in a breakdown, what that is when they're casting something, the production companies will have the casting agents send out, hey, we're looking for actors to play these various parts, and here's a brief description of what that character is to find the right actor. So if let's just read Janeway's, and I don't know if somebody took a bite out of this one. Captain Catherine Janeway. Catherine Janeway is a Starfleet captain who leads the combined teams of Starfleet and Maquis personnel. Spoiler alert. She's a tough captain who is not afraid to take chances. Well, not the only female captain in Starfleet. Her intelligence, thoughtfulness, dedication, and diplomacy have earned her respect and recognition as one of the best Starfleet captains, male or female. Because, of course, Janeway was the first female-led captain on a Star Trek series. And so that was a big part of the show and a big part of promoting the show. So it's obviously a part here of the character description. So you have the whole cast this way and press context at the bottom of all of them. I'm curious to read the doctors because he is credited as Doc Zimmerman. And I believe early on he was supposed to be sort of more of a peripheral character. But Bob's performance was so good, he became one of the leads of the show. So here it says, Doc Zimmerman. Doc is a holographic figure, an emergency medical program devised by Starfleet. When the ship's doctor is killed, spoiler alert, Doc Zimmerman becomes the resident physician aboard the USS Voyager. He is programmed with up-to-date medical knowledge and is capable of treating any disease or injury. Okay, well, that's basically that. Now we continue. We have bios for all of the main cast. So it's interesting with all these bios, all of their biggest credit for the rest of their lives will be Star Trek Voyager. But here is all the information before this. So this has more information about the character, and then more information about the actor. There's Robert Beltran's here. His busy schedule does not preclude Robert from spending quality time on worthy causes. He is a founding member and co-artistic director of the East Los Angeles Classic Theater Group. So a lot of interesting stuff here about the actors. And here we have Tim Russ. Tim's got a lot of stuff there because he's got a lot of... And they also have the producers. Rick Berman, the creator, one of the creators of the show, have his whole bio here. And Jerry Taylor and Michael Piller, the three creators of the show. Here's Robert Duncan McNeil's. I'd be very curious to see what they thought of their bios now, because, when's the last time you looked at one of your bios from 1995, Mike?
95. Mike is a junior in high school, or a freshman in high school. Really looking forward to getting his first car and instantly getting a ticket.
Sounds about right. Here, I've just learned something about Jennifer Lean. She enjoys playing the trombone. So similar to Riker. Who would have known? Ethan Phillips, of course, has a lot of his Broadway and off-Broadway experience.
My favorite year, right?
Multiple times. Subsequent to this, on the Broadway, Roxanne Biggs Dawson, who would go on to have a huge directing career. Lots of theater stuff, because Roxanne was a Broadway person. She was in the closing cast of A Chorus Line. Let me see here. She worked at Classic Stage and ACT and Circle Rep. Now I'm putting on back my theater press kit. I'm looking at their credits from theater. Very interesting. Here's Kate Mulgrews. I mean, these are really fascinating to have here. Garrett Wang was very young at this point. And here's Bob Picardo.
Doc.
And Doc Zimmerman in Star Trek Voyager. Talks about he went to Yale for theater. Pretty cool.
Is the practice on there? No, that would have been after, right?
That would have been after. Yeah. So here we are with all this fascinating original information. So let's now take an opportunity to show you these slides, because you don't want to miss those. We'll be right back. Okay. Now, it should not necessarily surprise you. I don't own a slide projector, but what I do own is a light bar, so we can take a look at these slides, starting with Tim Russ. So actually, these are different headshots. These are not the same ones as the black and white, but it's clearly taken the same day. It's just different poses in front of your, your background from your 8th grade school picture. But Tim Russ looking very intense here. So you can see on this side of it, it's just labeled Tim Russ and Star Trek Voyager. And on the other side, you can see it's got the Paramount branding. And Tim's trying to escape. We'll set him aside there. And continue. And here is Garrett looking very young and handsome. It's so interesting that it feels so oddly low tech and yet high tech at the same time. Slides, you know what I mean? It's like I don't know. It feels oddly official.
We'll go back to that one for a minute, because is it me, or do you see a star sticker, remnants of what used to be a star sticker there?
A star? Oh, yeah, there is. Oh, that's interesting. Is that on the slide itself, or is? Yeah, I think the star sticker might have just joined us sometime in the last 20 years. I don't think it was part of the press kit. So
I thought maybe somebody in the press at that particular press office was like, "Hey, we're going to run this one," so they started it.
It's entirely possible. It's entirely possible. And here we have a great picture of the whole cast, which is pretty cool. A different pose from the cast photo from the black and whites. Let's take a look.
That's actually cool. That's a cool behind the scenes, because if you go back to that cast picture, you can tell it was absolutely meant to be cropped at the waist there, because you'd never want to see the studio setup, but it's kind of cool.
Sitting up drop. Yep. Yeah. Yep, for sure. Oh, those pictures are so freaking awkward to take.
Yeah, it could have very well be the first time you're in costume, and you're like, "Whoa,
what's happening?" Everyone suck it in for the entire time that we're shooting this. So here is Robert Picardo looking very serious. Everyone looks very serious in these. They told him, like, it's a drama, guys. It's a drama. And then you have Robert Beltran looking confident. Dude looks very confident. And then there is Kate Mulgrew, our fearless leader, looking very leadery in that. Oh, these are so cool. I mean, I don't know how many of these exist out there. There's Roxanne. That's Torres. And there is Robert Duncan McNeil, fresh off of the He-Man movie,
Mm.
which is
He can't wait for those
classic.
residuals. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like I probably gets. I mean, it doesn't get Star Trek residuals, but it gets play. There's Ethan Phillips. I think that is the same shot as the 8x10. That's interesting. They're like, it's perfect. Let's print everything with that. And we have
Wow.
this one's cooler because this one's actually on the set. So if I'm picking a photo to print on the cover of my magazine, it's definitely this one because it's the full cast on the set, labeled cast. Yeah, well, fair enough. That's as advertised. And here is Jennifer Lean again, looking young.
Sandy
There's
Duncan?
our Sandy Duncan. She's going to do triple Lutz. Yeah. So and then they apparently only wanted to give us that many. Give us 10. They were not going to give us 12. So or they gave us 11. That's weird. They couldn't come up with like one more. They couldn't give me a slide of the ship.
No,
I would have
still in
loved
design.
a
It's still in design.
the ship. But yeah, it's true. They hadn't gone to post yet. So yeah, so that's it. So I found all of that in an antique store in New Jersey for $15. I don't think it's necessarily worth anything, but it is just a really interesting and unique piece of Trek history. And I'm really excited to have it.
Yeah, I'm
And
excited for you to have it too, Keith. You know what else it is, which is important? Content. Because I love this kind of stuff. That's really cool. I don't know that you would appreciate it as much when I was 15, but now as an adult looking back, especially with a little bit of insight of how the business works, the entertainment business works on the back end, it's really interesting to see something that that a lot of our viewers will know as an entity, as something that exists in its entirety. Whereas, in those early days, you're just nervous actors kind of putting your stuff together for the first time. So this is a cool
it's a snapshot.
yeah. And to see how the network was pitching it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it is interesting. I mean, honestly, like that weird like coffee cup design of the folder would not have pulled me as a press person. It feels that part of it feels oddly cheap for such a big show, for a Paramount show. But that's what it was. And who knows? There might have been different tiers of the press pack. Entertainment Weekly might have gotten a more elaborate press kit than this. But this is the one that I have, and I'm really happy to have it. It's a nice little snapshot in time and piece of Trek history that I was delighted to discover.
I would love to know the provenance. Like, whose was that? Why did they decide to give it to this particular? How did it end up in the New Jersey? Someone probably worked on the show or worked in one of those press offices and held on to it. And it's complete. That's the cool part. It's complete.
It is complete. Yeah, which is really cool. It's a nice little find. So, folks, if you have gone to an antique store and found yourself a unique piece of Trek history, Mike, how would they email us about it with pictures and information? Because I'm definitely curious.
Yeah, folks, here at Look at My Star Trek Toys, we're flexible with the word toy, right? We are talking nostalgia. We are talking things that we can enjoy together as collectors, as fans, as, a little community here on the internet. So you can send your cool stuff our way with your permission. We'll show it on the air, perhaps. Look at my Star Trek Toys at gmail.com. If you just want to talk about these slides or any information you might have on them, or maybe you got a press packet, things like that, you can comment right below on the YouTube. Easy peasy.
Please.
Or, of course, you can always post your pics on the Instagram so you get the social media credit, but make sure to tag us at Star Trek Toys. And I believe that's all the contact ways. If you could do us a favor, go ahead and like this episode. Maybe subscribe. Definitely hit that notification bell so you get notified, and we let the Google Borg know that people are watching the show. Yes, for sure. Yeah, and if you have any more information on this, please let us know, because I'm super fascinated. And as is typical on YouTube, I'm just talking off the top of my head and speculating out of my ass. So yeah, and if you happen to know any of those press people and their number has remained the same, let us know so that I can go ahead and take it off the internet.
Yes, don't blame. Please do not call and harass these poor press people. They work hard. They do.
Yeah, the NDA didn't quite make it into the packet.
That's true. All right, folks. Thank you so much for watching. We will be back next week with another episode of
Look at my Star Trek toys!